I'm an eternal optimist. So I think the future looks exciting. It looks like full of opportunities. I think there's a tide of changes which are sweeping across the globe right now, be it the financial crisis, be it what's happening in the US or Europe, or for that matter, even in the emerging markets where GDP growths are slightly down. But every adverse situation is also an opportunity. I think it's for us to turn the tide. So I think the focus would be on creativity, the focus would be on innovation, the focus would be on responsible finance, and the focus would be on infusing more humanity, more value-based management in the leadership positions. Taking on from what I said about creativity, I think what worked in the past may not work in the future. And as I'm sure you've read the book from Marshall Goldsmith, So I think it demonstrates that we have to find new ways of doing things. And there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of uncharted territories. So for a new leader, it's going to take a lot of courage to go into those arenas, but believing that they can solve it. It's going to take a lot of conviction about, you believe in what you believe will work. And I think very often when I've worked with some great leaders, and I've had the fortune of working with some wonderful leaders through the financial crisis, be it in Europe, be it in London, be it in US, or now even in India, what kept us going were those leaders and their dreams and their beliefs. So I think their own conviction, their own courage, and the way they find creative solutions to the problems that they are faced with, and they may not be necessarily problems, they may be a new vision, defining the new landscape, is the kind of focus a new leader is going to need. In terms of skills, I don't think it's not going to be dramatically different. It's very difficult to say people management skills or judgment skills or visionary skills. The skill set, core skill set may be similar. It's how you redeploy those skill sets in the future is going to be very important. Well, I think in terms of the skills, look, when people have reached a middle level or kind of are slated to be in a leadership position, the general assumption I would make is they are above average in terms of their technical competence. So as they are growing to be a leader, which by definition may mean in a general management job, managing a whole lot of people, the shift will move from technical skills to behavioral skills or people management skills. I think it's very cliched, we've talked about it enough, but I can't re-emphasize this again and again. I've had multiple experiences working with seniors wherein they so easily fall back on their technical competence. And the biggest derailers for them are not reading between the lines. It's not being able to connect with their teams. It's not being able to win the hearts, but getting applaud for meeting a revenue goal. But I think the skill of winning people's heart is what's going to lead the future leader forward, more so as we've already spoken, in an environment which is ever changing. You're going to need new solutions. You can't do it alone. I think the leader role in the future is going to get redefined to an integrator role, wherein you identify, who are the best people to do that job. You don't do it yourself. So having that, uncanny ability to be able to identify, to be able to motivate them, to be able to get them to do what you think is the most important priority. And trust me, it's not easy. Convincing a high potential about a goal and getting them to do it, if they don't want to do it, is the toughest job on this planet. So I think a leader who has the human connect and who has emotional quotient probably will have an edge over others. Some of the things that I believe have worked for Citi and have worked for a couple of organizations is about, one is identifying people who have the potential which is relevant to your organization. And then when I think they're 70% ready, get them out. put them into a stretch assignment, which enhances their learning. And I think the biggest thing that does is, the seniors or the leaders will lose the fear of failure, because you are faced with an unknown. And the more successful you get in an unknown territory, the more your self-confidence grows. Again, I've worked with people who've been pulled out, put at the deep end, and sometimes failed. But I think it's an ability to learn, to be able to learn from failure, get up and re-deliver. And in my view, if there is a leader who has never faced a failure, trust me, it's not a great thing. Because failure is a natural part of learning. But the leaders are the ones who are able to learn from these failures, correct the course of action, and move ahead. So when people are ready, about 60 to 70% of the role that they are aspiring to do at the next level, I would highly encourage you to let them have that opportunity, because it gives them a chance to be able to fall, to learn, to get up and run. And in the future, that becomes very handy, because that early stage demotivation they're able to conquer. So I think that really works. It provides them the courage to be able to deal with things. And if you live your life so carefully that you've never had a failure, in my view, you've never lived at all. The second thing I would say, which I've alluded to earlier, which is, moving from a scale of technical expertise to so-called the human connect. And I think that's all about compassion. That's about being able to connect. And an important part in that ability is to help them appreciate or respect other people's time. It's very, very important. At a senior level, you would have witnessed, unfortunately, why people don't come on time for meetings, or sometimes you're not engaging enough in a discussion. Think about a situation if you were on the other side of the table. I think the more you respect somebody's work, their time, their passion to deliver for you, the more they get bound to you. So I think that whole compassion aspect, and the fact that you can get somebody to respect, and for respecting somebody, you need to understand them. And that takes time, that takes effort. It's not as easy. It's like forming a new relationship, a new friendship, but that's where the bonds develop, and that's where you get the partnership to achieve the most daunting goals that you might be faced with. They kind of, they have to be culturally sensitive. In my view, the world is becoming smaller. It's a digital age. It's an age about instant gratification. People want things to move fairly quickly. The games of the rules are changing very, very fast. They have to get used to the pace. And they have to get used to the different and the diverse mix of cultures around them. To me, any leader, be it a local leader or a global leader, the cultural sensitivity is very important. So, I would encourage people who aspire for a leadership position to work in diverse assignments, to work across cultures, to learn to appreciate cultures. I think, sometimes we're very quick to jump to judgments, and it happens at a very unconscious level, because cultural sensitivity is also driven by the socialization that all of us grow up with. What may mean great in one culture may not mean such a great thing in another culture. Silence is a virtue in a Southeast Asian culture, but not so in a North American culture. But learn to appreciate it, be sensitive to it. And I think, to me, all these three things kind of go hand in hand, and it will give any leader an impetus to go to the heights that they aspire for. Look, they're great psychometric tests for identifying somebody's potential. But I truly believe that human mind is not static. It's a dynamic, it's ever growing, it's learning new things. And you may put an employee through an assessment, or especially when you do a diagnostic of a certain kind. But if you were to run the same diagnostic, say, a couple of years down the line, the employee may have evolved and grown. Similarly, you have executive assessments to carry out in terms of what their preferences would be, and over a period of time how their experiences have shaped their future outlook. So all these are great tools. From my point of view, the best tool for an employee, for an organization is trust. You tell them you trust them and see how far that goes. And I think, if you want to hone it further, the thing which works is most powerful is 360. So I think the feedback, when an employee sees the real-time feedback from people that they trust, it's the most powerful tool which I have found in my experience in terms of improving behavior. And behavior is not easy to improve. It's something which an employee has to genuinely believe in, that it would be the right thing for him or her to do. And I think nothing like feedback works that magic. So 360 feedback, as I said, you can use the tools like diagnostics and executive assessment to identify the potential, but for real-time performance to go through a change or behavior to go through a change, I would heavily rely on a 360 tool from people that they trust. In terms of investments, relationships, I think, again, 360 plays an important part in terms of how they see the connect building out. And as over a period of time that relationship improves, you typically success breeds success, and you see employees investing a lot more in that relationship. One of the questions is how do you ensure that they're not set up for failure? I'll be honest, I don't think we ever can. Because if I trust them, I have to be able to throw them at the deep end. What I can do is make sure that when they are facing off against a failure and they have not succeeded in a project or an assignment, I'm there to pick them up and back on their feet, giving them that safe environment where they can experiment without fear of reprisal, without fear of being just thrown aside. I mean, obviously, there are limited chances you can give to an employee, but I think for an high potential, organizations have to be willing to take that risk. They have to be willing to be partner to that failure, and that's the investment that we would put in the employee. In terms of cultural sensitivity, I think the rotational part works really, really well. That's from my own personal experience, having worked through multiple countries. I also think working in project teams sometimes is very, very helpful. Having cross-border relationships in terms of reporting is also very helpful. And again, people learn through all of this. So I think some of those tools would definitely go a long way in building the kind of repertoire for a new leader.